First, logically, you have to break down what the carbon emission in Thailand is. So that's what you see on this left side of the slide. You have some electricity generation, 22% of the carbon emission, industrial and transport, 49%, agriculture, that's 15%, and the rest, such as mining, such as waste management. So then we have to have a suggested solution that jives with the carbon issues. First, what I offered during my time as a member of parliament is that we should leverage the infrastructure of solar cell. But the problem with solar cell is that there's no smart grid and there's no net metering. And the cumbersome legal requests for permits in order for them to do. So now if you have a solar cell, right, even if you have that, the way you store it and you resell it to the government will be about 2 baht. But when you use it, the government is going to charge you about 5 baht. So that's going to be 3 baht difference. It doesn't incentivize you to really get into solar cell, which is a good competitive advantage for the country. But smart grid and net metering, just to meter it all out, it will increase the use of solar cell power. And that's a good way to democratize energy. Because if you focus on the fossil fuels, if you keep using coal for a very long time, that's for the elites. That's for the monopolies to generate electricity. But if it's a decentralized solar cell, that's when you democratize energy and lower the cost and reduce the emission. We want to electrify public transportation. I mean, if you go to Thailand, you see that all the motorcycles on the streets and all the cars and our world-renowned traffic is lack of public transportation, especially outside of Bangkok. You might argue that Bangkok is okay. I've been to Bangkok, I took the BTS, I took the MRT, it's not that bad, Peter. But we're talking about 75 provinces outside of Bangkok that they don't have public transportation. And if we look at this pain point and turn it into a big opportunity, that we could just electrify public transportation, reduce the road safety, increase the road safety, as well as helping people. If you are, at the bottom 25%, you also need a motorcycle. That's part of, something that you need to pay in order for you to survive. Because you don't have public transportation. If you're a middle class, you probably need a Honda. If you're rich, you probably need a Mercedes or BMW. Because public transportation outside of Bangkok is so bad. That's why you have to really make it happen. And why use fossil fuel when you have a chance to start? Just use electrification of public transportation all around Thailand. That's like lots and lots of money that we're talking about here. Climate resilient, low carbon agriculture. So precision agriculture, reducing the use of fertilizer, reducing the use of seeds, and reduce the use of water such as drip irrigation. That's something that Thailand should be leading in terms of future of all these things because we are an agricultural country. And fourth is on urban risk, sponge city is something that I'm trying to look into, whether it's the ability to have urban planning, wetland, permeable surfaces that allow this country to absorb flash flood and things like that. That's a lot of investment to be done. But once we have cracked these kind of things, we'll be able to an asset and turn it into an industry and turn it into an opportunities that we can exploit in our neighboring countries in ASEAN. So that's the first example of what I mean by talking about crisis at the
อากาศร้อน น้องสาวภาพ
Yes, so
ภาพ
this
ชัด
is
ไหม
going
คะ
to be the format of today's talk so that we can keep continuing. In terms of reskill, the labor no longer up to par compared to peer. So on the left side, if you ask World Bank in terms of labor productivity of Thailand versus Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Cambodia, Thailand is that one on the red, a bit above Vietnam. So you see that the labor productivity has declined over the recent years. And the numbers in terms of manufacturing production index declined by about 10%. 40% of the Thai labor force are older than 40, and more than 50% of the labor force have skill below the essential skill levels. On the third slide that you see here, that's the trade deficit with China. You started to see that our competitiveness, our industrial competitiveness is declining, whether it's automotive, whether it's electronics, and whether it's construction materials, starting to look like that. So that's the problem that Thailand is facing in the future in terms of our labor productivity. Now, what do we do with this then? How do you reskill people? First of all, obviously you need some financial enablers and some legal enablers to make sure that reskill happens in Thailand. But it doesn't work like that. There's people who wanted to reskill, but once they have done it, there's no market for it. And that's really the issue of the labor productivity in Thailand. People wanted to reskill in their 40s, but there's no job opportunities for that. So how do you match the supply and demand to make it happen? So what I'm offering is called nano degrees and micro credentials for strategic workforce and reskilling. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. I mean, they're working every day for like 40 hours and 50 hours and things like that. They don't have time to reskill. They're like at the minimum wage. They go home and they just crash. They have no time to reskill. But if you really design it to be nano degrees and micro credentials, just exactly what they need it to do, that will be something that is digestible and they can chew it up. But the most important thing is on the right side. I call it the human capital loans. I get that idea from South Korea. If you are certified on a particular course degrees, it becomes a collateral for you to go to the bank and get a credit out. If you're a very good good photographer or a good cinematography in K-Wave in South Korea, you don't even have to have land. You don't even have to have cars. You don't even have to have revenue or income. You use that certificate and go to the bank. And the bank will do income sharing agreement loan with you. That allows people to be alternative credit scoring for those people to solve in terms of unequal assets that they have. But this is a way that provides both supply side of things, make it easy for people to reskill, and also on the demand side, it gives them a reason why they want to reskill. Because once they reskill and they're certified on certain things, you go to the bank and say, look, I have a degree on AI and accounting. They are going to okay, I'm going to include you in the financial system, do an alternative credit scoring on you, and finally you'll be able to get the cash out and start a business or something like that. It gives you an incentive or a reason for you to reskill. Without the number 2, no labor or no workers is going to waste their time trying to go to classes and learning about something that they don't want to do about, they don't want to focus on. Third is on innovation. On the left side, you see R&D of Thailand. It's about 1.16% of the GDP. We compare it to Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, and the source is from IND World Competitiveness. Patent index on the second one, the U.S. Chamber International IP Index 2024, the scores of Thailand is 38, compared again to Malaysia, Singapore, Korea, and Japan. That's what Thailand is all about. And number 3 is the high-tech exports proportion, 2014 compared to 2021. So it's arguably that Thailand is a low-tech, low-touch economy. The question is, how do we turn this kind of dilemma into a high-tech, high-touch economy? Because we no longer have the scale. Back in the days, people want to invest in Thailand and export out of the country. But now you have various countries like Bangladesh, you have countries in like Brazil, China comes into the picture. There are large economies of scale. These countries are much more competitive than Thailand. And the question is, how do we make sure that Thailand become competitive in the sense of high tech and high touch? And what I offer is on 3 points. What I offer is first, regional ambition fund. You want to be a startup? Okay. But please don't just focus on Thailand. We only have 76 million people. The size is not large enough. If you want to solve a problem, you see a pain point in transportation like Grab, for example, you have to think about this as a regional ambition. In Singapore, if you want to get a grant for a startup ideas, the condition is that you leave Singapore. There's something like that. You can never be in Singapore. So same thing for Thailand. When I think about this, if I was in the government and I have a digital innovation fund, come and get it. It's going to be easy to get, not very cumbersome. The only condition is you have to think of ASEAN market. You have to think of Asia market, and you need to be out of the country. In order for you to really absorb new ideas and technology and things like that, in order for us to become innovative, it doesn't have to be in Thailand. The key difference is that a lot of politicians back in Thailand, they think of this kind of industrial policy as made in Thailand. I think of it as made with Thailand. It doesn't have to be confined within the territory of our country. It's too small. You have to have regional ambition in order to become innovative. Second is on pain point innovation. All of that inequality that I was talking about. If you're coming from Sattahip or from Chonburi, for example, the water quality is not very good. If you come to Phuket, the problem with water leakage is about 50%. The water goes into the system and it goes to your hotel. You input about 100, it comes by only 50 because of all the leakages in the water system. How do you use off-shelf innovation that's already existing? UX, UI, smart metering, water flow analysis, all these things that are available anywhere in the world, but use it for inequality. Technology for inequality. How do you fix inequality of Thailand? Because if you see how much it is, if you turn it into an asset and digitize it using technology to use, that's like lots and lots of money for all the folks from the business school. I mean, those people that think, they want to move to Southeast Asia, they want to move to Thailand and have a business idea, just look at all the inequality that the country has. And then use innovation that is off the shelf. Doesn't have to be like the most advanced things to do, but you put it into a package, you'll be able to make sure that there's a big market for you to tackle. And the last one is niche innovation. These are the semiconductor industries that is too small for the Americans to think about. It's too small for the Indians to think about. It's too small for the Japanese to think about. It's too small for the South Korean to think about. But Thailand has a lot of electronic industry and landscape and capability that we can focus. Because these two specialized tech is very important for EV and also solar cells. So, it can't be, if you ask the government and they say, next steps will be robotics and semiconductors, it's too big, and it's too big, and you can never compete with the amount of investment that Japanese is doing, or South Korean, or Vietnam, or America, or India. So it has to be something that is relevant, but very niche, and something that Thailand can innovate on. On super aging society. So aging more, aging fast. 21% of Thai population will be older than 65 years old. 18.5%. That number within 2030 will become 30%. So imagine if you have a country, 100 people, and 30 of them are retiring. They're older than 65. And the remaining 60-something has to provide as a workforce and provide as a social safety net for the